Hi there, welcome back to this week's edition of Get Me Right. You are going to be right if you get me right, because this analysis is about India first, nation first. The week was about developments in Bangladesh. A regime change was effected. Sheikh Hasina was dislodged as Prime Minister because she dared to stand up to both the United States and China. The radical elements in Bangladeshi society were on leash because she acted as a bulwark against their ideology. Pakistan, anyway, had an old standing axe to grind with her. It might sound outlandish as a theory that all four came together in a geopolitical tango to oust Hasina. That and the national security consequences of the Bangladesh developments for us is going to be my focus. Deep Dive 2 this week is on completion of 5 years of abrogation of Article 370 in Jammu and Kashmir. The anniversary on August 5 got overshadowed by Bangladesh developments, but marks an important milestone amid ongoing focus on terror in Jammu region. Jammu and Kashmir is my second story for you this week. Let's get started. Bangladesh is in turmoil. Lawlessness is a mild word to characterize what's happening in Dhaka. Over 500 lives have been lost in the last month of protests and violence that ultimately dislodged Sheikh Hasina government on August 5. Still contemplating her next move, Hasina remains a guest of Delhi, her life saved by a coordinated move between India and the Bangladesh army, whose chief, General Waqaruzzaman, is related to Hasina through a marriage in the family. The protests began after a court in Bangladesh operationalized a 2018 decision of the Hasina government, which reserved up to 30% of seats in government jobs for the second generation of Mukti Jodhas, those who had fought for the independence of Bangladesh from Pakistan in the 1971 War of Liberation. One would say what's wrong, as anti-reservation protests should be seen as progressive. Only that the reservation decision followed a political fault line of Bangladesh. Led by Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, Mukti Jodhas fought against the Pakistan army. The freedom fighters were also up against a strong pro-Pakistan Islamist element within what was then called the East Pakistan. Even before Mujib, the Bengali liberation movement had been building up against West Pakistani, essentially Punjabi repression. Pakistani books taught with subtle denigration that while the Punjabis ate wheat and were fair-complexioned, Bengalis ate rice, were dark-skinned and with a smaller height. The Bengali nationalism engendered by West Pakistani hegemony rejected imposition of Arabic alphabets and opposed the Objectives Resolution of 1949 on the grounds that it led to an orthodox Islamic state. The East Pakistan Muslim Students League dropped the word Muslim from their name in 1954, and so did the Awami Muslim League in 1955. The following year, the Awami League opposed the use of Islamic before the Republic of Pakistan, and the Assembly voted for the adoption of joint electorates. The build-up to 1971 struggle for Bangladesh's independence was accompanied by an experience of the most corrosive nature of religion as ideology. Pakistan was killing countless innocent Bengalis in the name of Islamic unity and called all those who opposed them, intellectuals, students, artists, etc., un-Islamic. Cut to 1971. Post-liberation and formation of Bangladesh, this pro-Pakistan Islamist sentiment remained a strong latent force. It was this force that was activated by Pakistan's ISI to assassinate Mujibur Rahman in 1975. Do you recall the date? August 15, India's Independence Day. A dark way of reminding India that Pakistan could get back. Sheikh Hasina survived as she was out of the country at that time. General Ziaur Rahman, who took over after the coup, himself was assassinated in another coup in 1981, but not before putting Bangladesh on a road to Islamization like his contemporary namesake in Pakistan, General Zia-ul Haq. Zia of Bangladesh rehabilitated the Jamaat-e-Islami, pardoned all killers of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, and realigned Bangladesh's foreign policy away from India towards Pakistan and China. He even tried to change the national anthem of Bangladesh, as Amar Shonar Bangla is written by Rabindranath Tagore, who also wrote India's national anthem Jana Gana Man. Zia's successor, General Ershad, declared Islam as a state religion and instituted Friday in place of Sunday as the weekly holiday, completing the process of Islamization. Begum Khalida Zia, widow of Zia-ur Rahman, made many of his and Ershad's Islamic features effective on the ground, going on to head a government in coalition with the Jamaat-e-Islami in 2001. Not a coincidence that Khalida years saw the meteoric rise of the terrorist outfit Jamaatul Mujahideen Bangladesh in early 2000s. In August of 2004, a grenade attack by JMB during a political rally almost killed Sheikh Hasina. In August 2005, more than 450 bombs exploded in 63 of the 64 districts of Bangladesh, injuring more than 200 people, killing 3. Jamaatul Mujahideen Bangladesh claimed responsibility for the bombings. Ridwan Isamuddin, known as Hambali, the alleged ringleader of the 2002 Bali bombings in Indonesia, was allegedly heading to Bangladesh when he was captured in Thailand. The Emir of Islamic State in Bangladesh, Muhammad Saifullah Ozaki, behind the July 2016 Holy Artisan Bakery bombing in Dhaka, cut his teeth into jihad with JMB in mid-2000s. Incidentally, Ozaki was Sajit Chandra Debnath with a doctorate from a Japanese university before he converted to Islam. The South Asia Terrorism Portal lists more than a dozen terrorist organizations active in Bangladesh as of today. All this gives you an idea of the kind of radicalism that seeped through Bangladeshi fabric over the last 3 decades, a nation whose foundations, ironically, were laid by the language movement that opposed imposition of Arabic over Bengali. Enough of history. Cut to the present. Sheikh Hasina, for these historical reasons, was inclined against Islamic radicalism at home and well disposed towards India in her foreign policy. In power since 2009, Hasina developed Bangladesh at a fast clip, bringing it out of the group of least developed countries to a low middle income economy, with its per capita income even surpassing that of India in 2022. Hasina years saw Bangladesh increase its GDP 5 times, from around $100 billion in 2009 to $565 billion now. And as of today, the economy is bigger than Pakistan on all development parameters. Success brings hubris, as they say. Hasina proved to be no exception. There are enough indicators of her having turned dictatorial and disconnected from the ground from her 3rd term onwards. 2 markers of that: the hounding of her political rival Begum Khalida Zia to the extent of compromising her health, and the building of larger-than-life public statues of Bangabandhu, some of which were unfortunately brought down by Islamists on August 5. The court's order on 30% reservations for the Mukti Jodhas only provided a trigger to a society which was already on a short fuse. What began as legitimate student protests quickly turned into mass mobilization, with other sections of society joining in. Mob violence unleashed had both aspects to it: the radical elements using student protests to further their anti-Hasina agenda, and the government coming down hard on the political protests, seeing them as a law and order problem. But let's see what happened as a build-up to August 5 to appreciate the actors behind the plot. Bangladesh had its general elections in the month of January this year, which Hasina won 4th time on the trot. The United States took a very public position that the elections were not free and fair. From the European Union to the United Nations, the West chimed in. Hasina was sought to be cornered. but the bad blood had set in earlier. In September of 2023, the US had put visa restrictions on Bangladesh officials and politicians found involved in political repression. Many other US statements followed, nudging Hasina to open dialogue with Khalida, to which Hasina cheekily replied by saying first Joe Biden should talk to Donald Trump. She had in fact blamed the United States for seeking regime change in Bangladesh, speaking in Parliament in April of 2023. Biden administration did not invite Bangladesh to its democracy summits in 2021 and 2023 to indicate its displeasure towards Hasina's autocratic ways. Even as a pseudo-democracy, Pakistan, with military holding the civilian government by the scruff of its neck, got invited. So irrespective of whether the United States had any role in the August 5 events, the relationship between Hasina and the US, Bangladesh's largest investor, had already broken down. That's why the US maintained an indulgent neutrality towards the protests and has effectively welcomed the ouster. Now let's look at another aspect, that of China. By and large, China has had a trade-focused relationship with Bangladesh, looking at it with the prism of being India's backyard, and hence a Xi Jinping visit, for example, a few years ago, to up the game in the Bay of Bengal for China. Hasina's pronounced pro-India position was an irritant that blew up during her visit only last month, when Beijing reduced protocol to send across the message that it was miffed. Hasina cut short her visit by a day, returning the compliments. Clearly not the best of times between the Chinese regime and Hasina when the protests erupted. Pakistan has always been the elephant in the room of Bangladeshi politics. It never vanished, just morphed into an anti-India sentiment that kept erupting now and then, particularly whenever Khalida's BNP would be in power. Those of my generation would not have forgotten the massacre of 16 BSF Jawans in 2001 by the Bangladesh Rifles, BDR, a border force with vestiges of Pakistani Rangers, which was ultimately disbanded in 2008. These are the people in Bangladesh who had sided with the Pakistan Army in 1971. These are the people who see Islamic bonhomie with Pakistan as being larger than Bengali nationalism. It is that element within the Bangladeshi society which saw Mukti Jodha reservations as being against them. They were behind the desecration of Bangabandhu statues on August 5. For them, Mujib has remained a traitor to the cause of political Islam forever. Remember what External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar told an all-party meet. India has credible information on Pakistani ISI's role in injecting student protests with anti-Hasina spike. There is a reason why the violence has turned anti-Hindu in some pockets. There is a latent jihadi anger against Hasina acting as a bulwark against Islamic radicalism in Bangladesh due to her India tilt. The Hindu minority provides a soft target to vent that anger. What do all these developments of past week mean for India? In my view, this is the most dangerous security situation we are going to be dealing with going forward. India's over 4,000 kilometers long border with Bangladesh is unfenced for most part. Patrolling by the Border Security Force has already increased to never seen before levels in recent times. Smuggling of cattle, drugs, and fake currency might see a spike. Illegal infiltration has been a problem even in the best of times. In earlier editions of Get Me Right, I have already highlighted the scale of illegal Bangladeshi immigrants in India. This has had law and order consequences. JMB operatives have been convicted in terror-related crimes as far as Bengaluru down south. And while in the interim, the government is helmed by a very urbane Muhammad Yunus, in all likelihood, the next elections in Bangladesh are going to throw up a government with both the BNP and the Jamaat as key players, both with a history of ingrained and institutionalized anti-India sentiment. There is going to be a realignment of Bangladeshi foreign policy away from India. Pakistan would get a bigger toehold vis-a-vis Hasina years. China card would come into play. Clearly, we have a situation to deal with. There are challenging times ahead for India's national security architecture and neighborhood foreign policy. Saving grace is we have proven to be nimble-footed on earlier occasions. Like in the case of Maldives, after the initial bluff and bluster, the Muizzu government is smoking the peace pipe. In the Himalayas, while internal dynamics led to yet another change of government in Nepal, Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli seems to be conducting himself with much restraint on his China tilt in his second term. Sri Lanka knows India proved to be the friend in need during the 2022 financial crisis and political turmoil, and hence is a friend indeed. We should be able to tide over the Bangladesh crisis too.